Okay, welcome to the lesson on kinetic energy. In particular, we will be focusing on mechanical kinetic energy. So as we have learned, kinetic energy is the energy of motion. There are 5 types of kinetic energy: radiant, electrical, mechanical, sound, and thermal. In this lesson, we will focus on mechanical kinetic energy. Mechanical kinetic energy is the energy an object has as a result of its motion from one location to another. Any moving object has mechanical kinetic energy. So when you're moving, you have kinetic energy. When an object or machine has moving parts, it has kinetic energy. Any object that's moving has kinetic energy. The amount of mechanical kinetic energy that an object has depends on the mass of the object and the speed of the object. The more mass an object has, the more kinetic energy it will have, and the faster an object moves, the more kinetic energy it will have. Kinetic energy can be calculated by the following equation. So kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared, where Ke equals kinetic energy, m equals mass in kilograms, and v equals speed in meters per second. So because speed is squared, speed has a greater impact on kinetic energy than mass. But both of them are being multiplied together. So if you increase one, you increase kinetic energy. The standard metric unit for kinetic energy is the same as potential energy. It's the joule. So just like we learned in the last lesson, we're using joules to measure energy. Here's an example. An object is traveling at 3.2 meters per second and has a mass of 10 kilograms. Calculate the kinetic energy of the object. So we start by writing out the given information. Always write the word given and then write down the variable and what value it has for any information from the question that you can find. Then we write out the equation and plug in the numbers, and we get kinetic energy equals 51 joules. So always remember to square the velocity. So it's 3.2 squared times 10 divided by 2, which equals 51 joules. Here's another example. In this case, you know the kinetic energy and the mass, but you're going to try to find the speed of the object. So an object has a kinetic energy of 340 joules. The mass of the object is 10 kilograms. Find the speed of the object. So we write out the given information. Kinetic energy equals 340 joules, m equals 10 kilograms, and v, velocity or speed, is what we are looking for. Then what we have to do is rearrange the equation to solve for velocity. So I'm going to get v squared by itself on one side of the equation first. So it's Ke equals 1/2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2 is the same thing as dividing by 2. So it's mv squared divided by 2, which is the same as multiplying by 1/2 here. And so the first thing we have to do is multiply by 2 to get the 2 out of the right-hand side. So the 2 cancels. Then we get 2Ke equals mv squared. So the next thing we have to do is we have to divide both sides by mass, m. So m cancels. So we divide this side by m. So we get v squared equals 2 times kinetic energy divided by mass. And that's the equation we have here. Then the last thing we have to do is we have to do the opposite of squaring. So the opposite of squaring a variable is to take its square root. So we take the square root of the left side to get rid of the square term, and what we do to one side we have to do to the other. So we square root the right side. So this is v equals, this is a square root sign that goes all the way across. It's just cut off on my notes. So it's square root 2ke divided by mass, and then I plug in the numbers, and I get 8.2 meters per second. Now what I want you to do is check your understanding. Determine the kinetic energy of a 625 kilogram roller coaster car that is moving with a speed of 18.3 meters per second. Pause the video now and try the question. Okay, so here is the answer. The answer is 1.05. This should be to the power of 5 joules. So if you got it correct, you can move on. If not, try to make corrections. And the next question, try this one. Missy Dewater, the former platform diver for the Ringling Brothers Circus, had a kinetic energy of 12,000 joules just prior to hitting the bucket of water. If Missy's mass is 40 kilograms, then what is her speed? So read the question carefully. Write out the given information. What do you know? And what are you looking for? And then rearrange the equation to solve. So try that now and pause the video. And here is the solution. V equals 24.5 meters per second. If you got that correct, you can move on to the practice questions, and that concludes the presentation.